Officially, all of England became Christian from when the Roman Empire adopted the faith in 323 until the Romans left in 410. In practice, Kent was the first real Christian kingdom here, from the 6th century. The story of Kent's conversion starts in the Roman province of Gaul, modern-day France, with Saint Martin of Tours. Saint Martin was born in Eastern Europe, modern-day Hungary, and served as a cavalryman in the Roman army. After his conversion to Christianity, he refused to bear arms. When accused of cowardice, he offered to go unarmed into a battle at the front of the Roman army. In the event, the battle never took place. St. Martin left the army and became a disciple of the monk, St. Hilary of Poitiers. St. Hilary had been exiled to the Far East, modern-day Turkey, for refusing to accept the heresy of Arius, who denied the divine nature of Christ. While there, he learnt the ways of Eastern monasticism. St. Martin became the third bishop of Tours in 371. After his death, many miracles were associated with his relics, and huge numbers of pilgrims came to venerate them. In 460, a large church was built to house them. St. Martin was adopted by the royal family of the Franks, the powerful Merovingian dynasty, which ruled much of modern-day France and Germany. Around 560, a princess was born called Bertha. She was raised in Tours and felt a special affinity for St. Martin. In 580, a strategic alliance was formed between the Franks and the Kingdom of Kent. The ruler of Kent, Ethelbert, was known as Bretwalda, or Great Ruler, because as well as his own kingdom, his influence spread to many other areas, all the way up to the River Humber, the border with Northumbria. The Frankish king Charibert gave his daughter Bertha in marriage to King Ethelbert. Ethelbert was a pagan, but the marriage agreement stipulated that Bertha would have the right to practice a Christian faith. St. Bertha rebuilt a small church in Canterbury and named it St. Martin's. It is the oldest church in continuous use in the British Isles, and part of the brickwork dates from the time of St. Bertha. She brought a chaplain, Leuthard, to spread the faith. There was only anecdotal evidence of his existence until a recent excavation uncovered a medallion with his name and face on it. Some years later, in 596, St. Bertha was involved in arranging for the missionary visit of St. Augustine, who had been sent by St. Gregory of Rome. In 597, St. Augustine arrived on the Kentish coast, at the Isle of Thanet. Thanet remained an island until 1672, when the channel silted up. St. Augustine was appointed by the Pope as the first Archbishop of Canterbury, and was instrumental in bringing Christianity to these lands. He constructed a large abbey, the remains of which are still there. He also started work on a cathedral. The current cathedral dates from the 11th century. Shortly after St. Augustine's visit, St. Ethelbert himself adopted the faith, making him the first Christian king of England. Ethelbert and Bertha had 2 children, a son, Eadbald, and a daughter, Ethelberga. On the death of his father, Eadbald became king of Kent. He agreed to marry his sister Ethelberga to the king of Northumbria, Edwin. At the time of the marriage, Edwin was still pagan, but, like her mother, Ethelberga was given leave to practice her Christian faith. When she moved up north, she took a chaplain, Paulinus, who spread the gospel there. Edwin later adopted the Christian faith himself, making him the first Christian king of Northumbria. In 633, Edwin was killed in battle by the pagan forces of Cadwallon and Penda, and Northumbria fell into chaos. Fearing for her life, Edwin's widow Ethelberga returned to Kent. There she established a monastery at Lyminge. The parish church there is still dedicated to her. Recent excavations have uncovered the outline of her original chapel, with the semicircular apse, or sanctuary, still visible. Ethelberga had taken with her Hilda, a great-niece of King Edwin, aged 19. Some years later, when stability had returned to Northumbria, Hilda returned there, and was appointed by St. Aidan as the abbess of a monastery in Hartlepool. Later, she became the abbess at Whitby. Ethelberga also brought her 7-year-old daughter Enfled to Kent. Some 10 years later, Enfled returned to Northumbria to marry King Oswiu. Oswiu had defeated Penda in battle and recaptured Northumbria. As we discussed in our other videos on the Northumbrian saints, Oswiu followed the Irish traditions, while Enfled followed the Roman ones. This led to them celebrating Easter on different dates. While one was fasting, the other was feasting. The issue was resolved at the Synod of Whitby, which found in favour of the Roman practices. On the death of her husband, King Oswiu, St. Enfled succeeded St. Hilda as the abbess at Whitby Monastery. So, we have 3 generations of women saints in Kent, each of whom played a key role in the spread of Christianity. St. Bertha, who came from the kingdom of the Franks and converted King Ethelbert. St. Ethelberga, who married the Northumbrian king, Edwin, and converted him to the faith. And St. Enfled, who further strengthened the faith in Northumbria. We should also mention St. Enfled's cousin, St. Ainsworth. She rejected the offer of marriage from a pagan prince and, instead, founded a convent at Folkestone, Kent. In 1885, the remains of a human were found in a reliquary cemented into the wall. Relics were often hidden during the Protestant Reformation, which sought to destroy them. The vicar was convinced they were the relics of St. Ainsworth, which were known to have been venerated there up to the time of the Reformation. In 2020, archaeologists radiocarbon dated the bones, which confirmed they were from the 7th century. The person was female, with no signs of malnutrition, suggesting that she was probably of noble birth, and most likely St. Ainsworth. We mentioned already the first Archbishop of Canterbury, St. Augustine. Another important person who held that post was St. Theodore. He was born in Tarsus, the city of St. Paul. When that city was invaded by the Persians, he moved to the imperial city of Constantinople. He then spent time in Rome, before being appointed Archbishop of Canterbury, the head bishop of the British Isles. St. Theodore was renowned for his interest in learning, including astronomy, medicine, law, rhetoric, music, and philosophy. He established a prominent school in Canterbury, teaching in both Greek and Latin, which led to a golden age of Anglo-Saxon scholarship. Graduates were sent out as abbots throughout the whole of southern England, increasing the educational level in the monasteries. St. Theodore also instituted a series of reforms, which led to the church being run more efficiently. He called a number of synods, one of which, Hatfield in 680, mirrored the orthodoxy of the Sixth Ecumenical Council in Constantinople of the same year. This taught that Christ has 2 wills, human and divine. See our video on the Sixth Ecumenical Council. Kent was the first kingdom in the British Isles officially to become Christian. It was one of the 2 major gateways through which the faith entered our lands, the other being Iona in modern-day Scotland. The Kentish source came directly from Rome, while the Iona tradition came from the monasteries in Gaul, into South Wales, then into Ireland, then into Iona, and finally into Northumbria. And so a kind of pincer movement was formed, with the faith coming from the north and the south, evangelizing the entire land. The spread of Christianity in Kent was spearheaded by a series of great female saints: St. Bertha, St. Ethelburga, St. Enfled, and St. Ainsworth. Pray to God for us.